Here are the top stories for today, April 28, 2020. President Duterte urges owners of business establishments to ensure the health and safety of their workers. Malacanang denies allegations that President Duterte is using the coronavirus disease pandemic to declare martial law. The Philippines has maintained its BBB Plus credit rating despite the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And a Cordilleran doctor who tested positive for COVID-19 is raring to go back to his sworn duty upon recovery. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Duterte urged owners of malls, bazaars, and other shopping centers to ensure the health and safety of their workers once the general community quarantine or the new normal starts on May 1st. Duterte said since the government has granted the request for non-leisure stores and malls to partially open, they should also comply with quarantine protocols such as disinfecting the workplaces and providing durable masks for their employees. Duterte also thanked Filipinos for following the guidelines under the enhanced community quarantine, which will lapse on May 15. Once the ECQ ends, Duterte was hopeful that priority construction projects may resume under a modified quarantine. Meanwhile, Duterte has ordered concerned government agencies to speed up the delivery of medicines and medical supplies for patients infected with COVID-19. Duterte urged agencies to course medicines and medical supplies through Peace Advisor Secretary Carlito Galvez, the chief implementer of the national policy against COVID-19. He said agencies should waste no time in sending the medicines to hospitals and other health facilities.
Ang utos ko ngayon is i-deliver ninyo yung medicines kay General Galvez, Secretary Galvez, sa kanya. Huwag na sa City Health because City Health has no manpower to attend to all of these things. Ito naman kasi sa Galvez, it can distribute the burden to the different participating government agencies. And for one, gusto kong madalian, so i-deliver ninyo ito if it's intended for the provinces outside of Metro Manila. Yung malayo, it's being ferried by plane. Yung malapit lang, of course, by land. Pero gusto ko na dumating sa madaling panahon.
A technical working group of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has submitted its final report on the Responsive and Sustainable Recovery Plan to address the impact of COVID-19. The group outlined 3 phases of the government's response against the COVID-19 threat, namely response, mitigation, and transition to the new normal. Duterte said the response phase focuses on strengthening the health system by increasing the number of COVID-19 testing, contact tracing, quarantine facilities, hospital beds, and medical equipment to curb the transmission of the virus. The mitigation phase provides strategies to ensure food security and reduce financial losses. The transition to the new normal phase directly responds to the comments of some senators to engage a whole-of-government approach in formulating programs under the new normal scenario. Nearly 200,000 small business employers have pre-qualified for the government's wage subsidy program for workers affected by the implementation of the enhanced community quarantine. Duterte said around 6,403 employers have completed the application process on behalf of 130,188 employees, and almost 200,000 small business employers were already pre-qualified for the small business wage subsidy program. This program provides salary subsidies to around 3.4 million workers in the formal sector, amounting to a combined 51 billion pesos for 2 months. The wage subsidies range from 5,000 to 8,000 pesos per month per employee for 2 months, depending on the minimum wage levels in the regions where the workers are employed. Actual payouts are scheduled on May 1st to 15 for the first tranche and May 16 to 31 for the second tranche. Duterte said they are also studying a proposal to amend the National Internal Revenue Code, or NIRC, to stretch the net operating loss carryover period from 3 years to 5 years. This is to help small-sized enterprises to cope with losses, and a credit guarantee program to cover loans worth 120 billion pesos. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III said stretching the NOLCO by 2 more years would require congressional approval. The DOF estimates the financial losses of small businesses to 465.3 billion pesos as a result of the ECQ. DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña lauded scientists and researchers for helping the nation in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. During the Alerto broadcast on Monday, de la Peña thanked and commended Filipino scientists, saying many of them could earn better if they work abroad, but many of them opted to serve the country. In a public address aired Monday night, President Duterte instructed the DOST and the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, to put additional manpower and employ as many as they can so that work can be done day and night. De la Peña said they would look at which among their services would need 24/7 work to hasten the completion of projects in response to COVID-19 and other epidemics that may arrive in the future. Among the projects include the Rapid Pass, the RX box deployment in the PGH, and 2 studies in the efficacy of virgin coconut oil in the recovery of COVID-19 patients. De la Peña said the VCO community-based trial was already approved and training of community hospitals would start on Tuesday. Makati passes ordinances on anti-discrimination and non-wearing of masks. Meanwhile, telco giants grant free access to the Department of Education's web-based learning tools. More on these from Teresa Montemayor.
Makati City has passed ordinances requiring all its residents to wear protective gear and punishing any act of discrimination against persons with infectious diseases. This also includes healthcare and medical workers who are at risk of infection amid the COVID-19 outbreak. In a Facebook post on Monday, all residents, workers, and visitors coming in and out of the city are required to use face masks or any protective equipment. The Anti-Discrimination Ordinance prohibits the public from spreading false information or the identity of individuals who are infected and those who are under investigation or monitoring. Refusing to transport remains, embalming, and burial services to persons who died due to infectious diseases are also punishable by the law. Meanwhile, telco giant PLDT and its wireless subsidiary Smart Communications granted its users free access to DEPED Commons website and other web-based learning tools. In a statement on Monday, PLDT said all Smart Mobile subscribers will have free access to DepEd's web-based learning tool. This after DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones called for support from telcos to provide free access to the DepEd Commons website to support the education of Filipino children. The DepEd Commons provides online review materials and open educational resources for the use of both students and teachers. In other news, the Department of Tourism on Monday extended its condolences to the family of former Secretary Ramon Jimenez Jr., who passed away at 64. DOT Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat acknowledged Jimenez's work during his years of service, which led to the growth of the tourism sector and promotion of the Philippines as a wonderful, joyous, and fun place. It was during the leadership of Jimenez that the famed tourism tagline, "It's more fun in the Philippines," was coined. Jimenez, who worked in the advertising industry for 35 years, served as a DOT secretary from 2011 to 2016. The cause of his death was not immediately known. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Teresa Montemayor.
Still to come, Malacanang denies allegations that President Duterte is using the coronavirus disease pandemic to declare martial law. And the Philippines has maintained its BBB Plus credit rating despite the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Kakagaling ko lang ng grocery. Siyempre, hindi ko hahayaan na pumasok ang COVID-19 sa bahay at mapahamak ang pamilya ko. Kaya iiwan ko ang sapatos ko sa labas. At ngayon, maghuhugas ako ng kamay ng 20 seconds. O ayan, wala na ang virus. Tandaan, buhay ng pamilya natin na nakasalalay. Let's heal as one.
Alam niyo ba na pumapasok ang COVID-19 sa ating katawan sa pamamagitan ng mata, ilong at bibig? Kaya lagi kaming conscious dito sa bahay kapag umuubo kami. Lagi kaming naghuhugas ng kamay in 20 seconds. Pag lumalabas kami, lagi namin suot ang mask. Lagi lang natin tatandaan mga mamshi. Buhay ng pamilya natin ang nakasalalay dito. Let's heal as one.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang on Monday denied allegations that President Duterte is using the COVID-19 pandemic to declare martial law in the country. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque laughed off the allegations, saying the health crisis is a global problem. Roque said Duterte would only declare martial law if communist rebels continue to attack the government troops guarding the distribution of food and cash aid to the public. Earlier, Duterte said he might only be compelled to declare martial rule if lawlessness of the CPP-NPA persists. Duterte made this warning after 2 soldiers were killed and 3 others were injured following attacks by the NPA during aid distribution in Aurora province on April 21st. Last Friday, the CCP said Duterte should stop using communist rebels to justify his penchant for martial law rule. The CPP also said Duterte should not highlight the NPA's alleged activities to cover up the administration's failure to address the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, Roque said he respects the opinion of Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson to support Duterte's possible declaration of martial law, at least in areas where the NPA operates. Under the 1987 Constitution, Duterte may declare martial law in case there is invasion or rebellion or when the public safety requires it. President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday said the Philippines has maintained its BBB Plus credit rating despite the negative impact of the coronavirus disease pandemic. Duterte attributed the country's stable growth performance to his decision to call for an enhanced community quarantine as early as March 15. In April 2019, Standard & Poor's upgraded its credit rating on the country from BBB to BBB Plus with a stable outlook, a notch away from A level due to supportive policy dynamics and improving investment climate due to strong domestic growth, healthy external payments position, and sustainable public finance. On April 8, Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III said the Philippine economy is well prepared to handle the COVID-19 health crisis. He expressed confidence in the government's financial capability to bridge the problems arising from COVID-19. Duterte did not give further details about the country's BBB Plus credit rating, which remains the highest ever in the country's history. In our business news, the Asian Development Bank on Monday approved a $200 million loan to support the Philippine government's effort to provide emergency cash subsidies to vulnerable households amid the COVID-19 pandemic. In a statement, ADB Vice President Ahmed Said said the pandemic has disrupted the livelihoods of millions of Filipinos and could set back the very substantial gains the country has made reducing poverty in recent years. ADB's loan under the Social Protection Support Project second additional financing will contribute to the $726 million required to provide emergency subsidies to four-piece households in April and May 2020. It comes after the signing of the $1.5 billion loan for ADB's COVID-19 Active Response and Expenditure Support Program on April 23rd. ADB is also preparing an expanded social assistance project to support the government's medium-term financing of the four-piece program. Government troops tasked to secure local officials distributing cash assistance to residents on Sunday clashed with members of the New People's Army in the municipality of Bilar in Bohol Province. The Army's 47th Infantry Battalion said the troopers were conducting security operations in the villages near the town proper in preparation for the distribution of the Social Amelioration Program assistance scheduled for Monday. The firefight erupted at around noon in Purok 7, Barangay Cambigsi. No one was reported killed nor injured on both sides. The troops retrieved foodstuffs that are allegedly from the civilians, as well as ammunition and medical aid. Earlier, soldiers from the 47 IB based in Tubigon, Bohol, received reports from residents about armed men who were allegedly harassing the villagers and forcing them to hand in food. Mayor Manuel Jayectin of Bilar strongly condemned the NPA's plan to disturb the distribution of cash assistance to the people who are affected by the community quarantine in Bohol. 10,000 informal workers in Central Luzon have received cash assistance from the government to help them during the enhanced community quarantine in Luzon. More on this and other news from the provinces from Janice Cabe.
The Department of Labor and Employment has released about 45 million pesos to over 10,000 informal sector workers in Central Luzon since the enhanced community quarantine was imposed last March 17. The cash assistance is under the DOLE's Tupad Barangay Ko, Bahay Ko Disinfecting Sanitation Project, adopting the guidelines of the ECQ. DOLE Regional Director Maria Zenaida Angara Campitas said aside from the regular funds of Tupad, more than 80 million pesos in addition was allocated to benefit nearly 19,000 informal sector workers in the region. The duration of work under the Tupad program is limited to 10 days, for which worker beneficiaries in the region received 420 pesos per day. In Negros Occidental, some who received extra cash assistance from the government voluntarily returned the amount. Problems encountered in the identification of beneficiaries have led to double payment to a certain family or household or the release of the cash aid to beneficiaries not qualified to avail of the assistance. Each beneficiary of the Social Amelioration Grant under the Emergency Subsidy Program has received 6,000 pesos for the month of April from the Department of Social Welfare and Development. Meanwhile, about 44% of all targeted low-income families in Davao Region have already benefited from the DSWD's Social Amelioration Program. DSWD reported that over 421,000 family beneficiaries who belong to the poor and informal sectors in the region have received the emergency subsidy worth 6,000 pesos. Of the 48 local government units in Davao Region, only the municipalities of Sulop in Davao del Sur and Tarragona in Davao Oriental have accomplished 100% payout. The DSWD said the national government agencies are working closely together with the LGUs in implementing the various social amelioration programs for the affected families in areas under community quarantine. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Up next, the Department of Finance remains firm against lifting the ban on alcoholic and tobacco products. And a Cordilleran doctor who tested positive for COVID-19 is raring to go back to his sworn duty upon recovery. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Mga mommies, pagdating sa COVID-19, dapat hindi tayo kampante. Bagamat hindi nakikita ang sakit na ito ay nakamamatay. At hanggang ngayon wala pa rin lunas. Kaya protektahan natin ang ating pamilya. Laging maghugas ng kamay, huwag hahawakan ng mukha, at manatili sa bahay para makaiwas sa sakit na ito. Tandaan, buhay ng pamilya natin ang nakasalalay dito. Let's hear this one.
Hi Caps! Kamusta?
Well, ito dahil sa COVID-19, medyo stress.
Okay lang yan, Caps. Napagdaanan ko din yan.
Ano kaya pwede natin gawin, no?
Kung nararamdaman mo na gulong-gulo ka na sa mga naririnig mo, sa mga nababasa mo, mag-pause ka muna, saka ka huminga ng malalim.
Buti na lang tumawag ka. Iba talaga pag may nangangamusta.
A strong body starts with a strong mind.
Tama. Let's heal us one.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
More than a week after placing Bukidnon province under enhanced community quarantine, Governor Jose Maria Zubiri Jr. has reverted the area's status to general community quarantine since Monday, April 27. Zubiri declared the entire Bukidnon under ECQ following the confirmation that a barangay official in Valencia City tested positive for COVID-19 after attending a cockfight derby in Davao City on March 13. The governor said the move was in compliance with President Rodrigo Duterte's April 24 order classifying Bukidnon as a low-risk area. However, precautionary measures are still in effect under the GCQ, although the general public is allowed to go out to purchase basic goods. All persons are still enjoined to practice social distancing and wear face masks outside their residence. Likewise, mass gatherings and religious activities are still prohibited. Zubiri said he leaves it to the local government units to decide which non-essential establishments and offices shall not be allowed to resume operations. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III is firm against lifting the ban on alcoholic and tobacco products during the enhanced community quarantine despite the drop in tax revenues from these products. The Department of Finance said excise tax collections from sin products fell year-on-year from January to April 15, 2020. Dominguez stressed that sin taxes are imposed to discourage the consumption of products that are detrimental to health. Dominguez said cigarette manufacturers are currently not allowed to bring out products for distribution in the domestic market, but manufacturing is allowed for export. The DOF chief earlier said he favors the resumption of domestic tobacco production as soon as allowed to address smuggling or illegal production. He said since a ban is still in place, the Bureau of Internal Revenue is vigilant against illicit trade. The Negros Oriental Chamber of Commerce and Industry is considering various alternatives for helping the tourism industry recover. This as the province prepares to downgrade its status to general community quarantine on April 30. Edward Du, Central Visayas Regional Governor of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, said they have told the diving industry players to start brainstorming on options because for the last 30 years, they have been totally reliant on dive tourism. Du said 50 to 60% of the province's tourism revenues are from diving. He said hotels, resorts, dive shops, and the people in these businesses have lost a lot of income, and many people have lost their jobs. Du said right now the province's only saving grace is the business process outsourcing industry, or BPOs, and the overseas Filipino workers. He said to resume to normal, there is a need to bring back tourism, although social distancing will impact on the businesses that rely on volumes of people. Two frontliners who survived the battle against COVID-19 are encouraging everyone to stay strong amid the pandemic. Dr. Carmina Fuentabella, a resident doctor at the University of Santo Tomas Hospital, contracted the coronavirus. She just turned 27 on April 24 while admitted to the hospital for COVID-19 treatment. Fuentabella said she is eternally grateful for the overwhelming support she had received from her friends and the people who offered love and countless prayers, which made her feel stronger. She urged individuals who feel depressed about their situation to not give up on life. She also vowed to come back to fight the COVID-19 battle on the front line. In the Cordilleras, Dr. Manuel Kelly Jr., a practicing medical internist both at the Baguio Medical Center and at the Cordillera Hospital of the Divine Grace in La Trinidad, Benguet, recovered from COVID-19. He tested positive on March 27 despite being asymptomatic and was eventually discharged on April 14 after reacting positively to treatment. Kelly said contracting COVID-19 taught him to become more cautious in practicing his medical career. He expressed his eagerness to continue serving his countrymen as a doctor. He reminded people to practice social distancing, proper hygiene, and proper use of face masks, eat nutritious food, and never forget to pray. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. President Duterte urges owners of business establishments to ensure the health and safety of their workers. Malacanang denies allegations that President Duterte is using the coronavirus disease pandemic to declare martial law. The Philippines has maintained its BBB Plus credit rating despite the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And a Cordilleran doctor who tested positive for COVID-19 is raring to go back to his sworn duty upon recovery. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, check our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day to all and stay home.